Last but not least, we had visited Central Asia. Now we are coming back to Lebanon on the Mediterranean Sea. We have a huge delegation from Lebanon, so please. Mr. Daguerre. Ah, tu parli? Ah, okay. So, Claudio Pastrucci, Director of the Italian Trade Agency in Lebanon.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and good morning. I know it's late, I know you're hungry, but please bear with us a little bit more. We're talking today about Lebanon. I'm Claudio Pascolucci, I'm the Director of the Italian Trade Agency in Beirut. The reason why I decided to come along with the delegation, you will see it's a very articulated and very varied delegation, is because we are investing a lot with our know-how and cooperation in the country. We already have the Italian Cooperation Agency that in the last years has been working a lot in the country, but now with the support of Restauro, Ferrara Fiere, all the companies, we have started a new project that will involve the transmission of Italian know-how and technology into Lebanon. You will see from this presentation that is a country that is experiencing and living a very complicated period. Many things happen, but nevertheless, the spirit and the idea of building back better is still very strong and very alive. We have been inviting several companies from the private initiative and private sector, plus, of course, the representatives of the Ministry of Culture. And now I will leave the floor to the first one, Mr. Fadlo Dalager, who is you will see, he will tell you who you are. Thank you, Fadlo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudio. Thank you for being here, all of you. I will start by introducing Beirut for all of you, and my colleagues will talk more and more about the different initiatives that are being taken on this city. Well, Lebanon is a very small country, and Beirut is its capital. It's practically, it was quite an important city economically. And I'm going to talk about the heritage of Beirut, which is up until today not protected by the authorities and by the state. The heritage of Beirut has been practically ruined by real estate, first of all, and lately by the violent explosion of the port of Beirut in 2020, which is a criminal explosion, but we don't know yet all the details about it. And since that, I don't know why it's not starting. Okay, so the heritage of Beirut is a very mixed heritage. Beirut is a very old city that goes back to the Bronze Age, but its recent history started in 1830 with the development of the seaport, and after that, of course, the city has grown a lot, and its heritage is mainly made of buildings from the second part of the 19th century and buildings from the early 20th up till the mid-20th century. And today, the city is a big mess in terms of urban design and urban master planning. And as you can see, sorry, Joe, there are very small scattered buildings in the middle of this urban jungle, let's say. But the city is fronting the sea, and you can see the port here, and the explosion in 2020 occurred practically in this point. So the Beiruti houses are a development of the early vernacular houses of Lebanon, which were made of 3 rooms with only one in the center, and then the development of this model with Mediterranean influences and Italian influences eventually came to a house that is called the Beiruti house, with its triple arches on the front and a central hall in the middle, which is a development of the early vernacular typical building. And these buildings, of course, are built in harmony with the climate, in harmony with the social status of the buildings, with specific rooms for reception or for private occupation, and of course rules of proportions that are typical, which show those houses from the smallest to the largest have the same typical plan built around a central hall, a central large room that is the gathering area for the whole family. And in elevation, it looks exactly also typical with the three arches in the center of the facade, from the smallest to the largest building, and my colleague Joe will elaborate more. Now, the urban fabric of Beirut is mixed between three periods: the late Ottoman period, the French Mandate period, which comes between 1920 and 1940, and then later on, of course, the modernist era from 1940 up till 1970. On August 4, 2020, our city was practically destroyed by a very strong blast in the center, in the port of Beirut, as you can see on the aerial photograph here. And most of our late Ottoman heritage, the 19th century buildings of Beirut, were practically affected by this blast. In the midst of this explosion, we have to say that the government was practically not around, totally absent from the reaction, except for the Directorate General of Antiquities. And it was the civil society who reacted to this explosion and to help back the people of Beirut. So as you can see, all these buildings were affected by this explosion. And this is when, with a group of colleagues and friends, we initiated the Beirut Heritage Initiative, which is a collective of some NGOs and some individuals in order to gather funds and to help people restore their homes and get back to their homes, bring back life to the city, because really it was a catastrophe. Since then, with the help of some individuals and some institutions, we have been able to fund and to organize the restoration. First of all, the urgent works, protection and sheltering of buildings. So 20 sites were protected and sheltered. Then also we had reconstruction works. So here you can see protecting the roofs of the buildings, either by reconstruction and replacing the tiles, or by putting tarpaulins on the top in order to protect the buildings from the rain. Consolidation, structural consolidation. This is Sursok Palace. My colleague Joe will talk of it in detail, where the facade was totally detached from the building and it was falling down. So it had to be sustained, connected by wires and cables to the inside of the building, and of course propped on the outside. Reconstruction of the emblematic three arches of the city, as you can see on those houses. So the three arches in the center were totally blown out, and we had to reconstruct with the existing pieces, of course, and respecting all the technology of restoration. And then we moved to another phase, which is full renovation of affected buildings, where you can see, for instance, this house with an old photo, and this is how it was just after the blast. So here we had to practically dismantle the facade of the building and reconstruct it. Of course, this is done by specialists, by professional restorers and architects who do a very delicate and detailed survey of the buildings, and then, of course, define all the technologies that you have to use to bring back those buildings to life. So we are reconstructing phase by phase all the details using the early and initial techniques that were used 150 years ago for these buildings. You can see details from the roofing, from the wood carpentry, ironmongery, etc., etc. This is the building before, just after the blast, and after its renovation. This is another building that we are working on now, and my colleague Joe will talk of it in detail because he is in charge of that, which also was totally blown out by the blast.